One of the most moving aspects of the synagogue service is when we take out the Torah. There's a whole ceremony associated with this. As we open the ark, the Torah is handed over to the chazan. It's carried through the congregation where people kiss it. And when we take out the Torah, and then when we put it back later on, there are verses that we recite that come from this week's parasha. In fact, these verses are very, very unique, because if you look at these two verses in the Torah, you'll see that they are divided from the rest of the Torah. There are, as it were, brackets, the letter Nun upside down, dividing these two verses from the rest of the Torah. And these two verses are as follows. Vahi ben Soaron vayome Moshe. And it was that when the ark would travel in the wilderness, that Moshe would speak up and he would say, Hashem, arise and let all of your enemies disperse from before you. Uvmenocho yomar, and when the ark would come to rest, when they would come to a place of encampment, then Moshe would say, Hashem, return to the myriads and thousands of Israel. And it's these verses that we continue to recite as we take the Torah from the ark and put it back. What are the significance of these verses, and in particular that first verse? Vahi ben Soaron vayome Moshe. It was when the ark would move that Moshe would say, Hashem, arise, and let all of your enemies scatter from before you. And perhaps to answer this question, to explain this verse, we can look at another difficult mitzvah in the Torah, where the Torah tells us in Parsha Truma that an ark has to be built. This ark was a wooden box covered in gold, into which the luchot, the tablets of the Ten Commandments, were placed, and also the Sefer Torah that Moshe wrote. This ark had poles, staves that went into it so that it could be carried by the Kohanim. And here the Torah tells us something very interesting, that these poles could never be taken out. Even when the ark came to rest and was placed in the Holy of Holies, these poles had to remain there all of the time. Why? Why was that important? One would think that when the ark had come to rest, you could take the poles out. They were only needed there because they were carried. What is the significance of that? And one of our great commentators explains as follows. The ark always had to be ready to travel, because at any moment, Hashem could say to Moshe, we are leaving right now. There would be no time to think about it. There would be no time to take the poles and insert them into the ark. It had to be ready to travel immediately. And this is the same meaning of the verse. Vahi ben Soaron vayome Moshe. It was when the ark traveled that Moshe had to say, Hashem, please arise and deal with your enemies. And this, in fact, is the history of the Jewish people. We would come to a place and we would think we're going to be here for a long time. We'd come to Spain and we'd think things are going fantastic here. We'd come to Poland and we would say, this is where Judaism is going to flourish. And suddenly, overnight, things would change. A pogrom, an expulsion, whatever it was, and we had to get moving. Vahi ben Soaron. It was when the ark traveled that Moshe, that the Jewish people would have to say to Hashem, please, Hashem, arise, let your enemies disperse. Let's travel on to the next destination. The meaning of this is that the Torah always has to be portable. It's not something that belongs in any particular location. True, in the land of Israel is its ultimate resting place. But throughout the diaspora, Jewish people have to know that we have to move at any particular moment. And therefore, the Torah has to be portable. Jews have to know how to take the values that they've learned from one place and move it to another place, because they're never going to be there permanently. And that's really the beauty and the wonder of the Jewish people, that they've taken this ark, they've taken this Torah, and for thousands of years, they've lived in a place without a homeland, without necessarily even a language, not really being a nation, and yet what has carried them has been the Torah. And in fact, this is what our sages tell us, that the ark was very heavy, and yet when the Kohanim lifted it up, they felt as if they were being lifted up, because it's not us that carries the Torah, but it's the Torah that carries us from destination to destination. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.